Gabby, and I am the Master Trainer for the Guest Service Gold Tourism Oregon Edition. The Guest Service Gold Professional Accreditation is sponsored by AHLEI. It's an international certification for this product, and it's been tailored to Oregon specifically by the Oregon Restaurant Lodging Education Foundation. So I think by now you will have gone through the training yourself online, so you'll be familiar with it. And I want to turn your attention in this video to our session on the 9th of July, about 10 days from now, I guess, and how we will run that. The purpose of that session is to, learn from one another, give ourselves a chance to deliver the material. I'm going to do an element myself, so you'll be able to see my approach. And I will outline kind of my approach here. I'll encourage you to stick fairly closely to it, but I also want you to interject yourself into the training to make it fun for you and to bring it alive for the employees you'll be training. But that's a balance, okay? We need to cover the material, and that's kind of what I'm going to focus on in terms of my process and structure. But we also need to bring our authentic selves into this to really bring it to life. So you have received a few things from us. You'll receive a trainer's guide, a trainer's manual. You will receive this little guy here, which is a USB with all the videos that you saw in the training specific to Oregon, including one from the Oregon Convention Center. And you'll get an idea of how these elements can be tailored to the state of Oregon in this case, but we're hoping to drill down to another level for you and to even specify it further to the Oregon Convention Center and perhaps even further to the departments within the Convention Center that you represent. So in order to do that, we're going to hand out the elements to you individually and ask you to present them to the rest of us. I'm going to take recovery, for example, and you have been assigned an element yourself. In addition to the materials that we've shipped to you or passed out to you, there's also this PowerPoint template on an email that's been sent to you with the instructions for accessing the online training, the agenda for our training day together, and this file is attached to that. I'm looking at it here in the view that shows all the slide details on the left and the notes underneath. This template has been designed to provide notes, facilitation notes for you, and kind of lead you through the training. It calls out which page of the workbook, the participant's guide, that you're covering with each slide, and it's always kind of a good idea to center the participants back to that workbook, because that's where they can take their notes and sort of stay on track with the training. One thing you can print is a copy of the notes pages for the PowerPoint. Here, layout notes, right, let's do that. Let's go to notes, and that will give you the slide on a portrait layout with the notes underneath, and you can see as you click through, the notes are added here. So that's a nice tool that I like to use to keep me on track. Also, of course, I will have a laptop there attached to a projector for you to use. So in that case, these notes will appear on screen on the laptop as the slide is being beamed up on the screen. I just find that a little hard to manage myself. I prefer to have the notes in front of me. So that's just a facilitation tip that I use. So getting into then this 15 minutes we've assigned you to deliver your element. I'm going to use my element of recovery and just talk to you about how I'm going to do it. And you can use that as a starting point for your piece. And again, we're not critiquing you, we're not judging you. We're just doing this together as kind of a practice and to learn from one another. So there are good ideas and bad ideas, but there's not one gold standard that everybody has to deliver to. So having done this a few times now and been involved with some of the design up front and seen other people do it, this is what I think works best. So there's a slide to introduce the element. And then on the next slide, it sets up a piece called Understanding the Concept that is provided for each element, in this case recovery. It highlights the workbook page here that it's on. And there's some phrases that define this concept. And then there's some questions, some facilitated questions you can ask of your group to get a discussion going, an interactive discussion with your group about the element. And on the slide, it's just the question, but down below, you'll see there's some prompting of some answers that if you got a group that's not real responsive or is not quite nailing the concept the way that the curriculum sets it up, then you can use these notes down here to help shape that activity for them. So I'm going to lead with this, then I'm going to show you the video. And it's a specific story from OMSI. And then after the video, and the videos are about 3 minutes long, so of your 15 minutes, there's 3 minutes or so that are going to be used up by the video. But the video provides a great example that can then further more facilitated discussion with your group. And so there's some prompting questions provided for each video. You may have different ones, that's fine. Your notes, of course, kind of give you some tips about how to facilitate the discussion around each of these questions. So I will be doing that with you. And you'll spend a few minutes kind of debriefing that video. I imagine that when you're doing this for your own groups, the video debrief will turn very quickly to examples from that your employees bring from their work lives. Hey, the other day this happened to me. Here's what I did. Was that right? Would you suggest another way to do it? And that's excellent. That's what you want. That's how people learn. So this idea of not being a professor or an authority on guest service or these elements, you're a facilitator. You're helping to coach people by using examples and then getting them to discuss their questions or their experiences with that in the workplace. A little bit harder to do with our group in a train the trainer format because we don't have that shared experience, but I think you'll see how that can work when you're on your own doing this. So after that debrief discussion, then I will go to the next slide and I will cover the formula for recovery. Now, this formula idea is an important one. For each of the elements in the participants' workbook, there is a formula that sort of recaps it. These formulas are critical mostly for the certification exam because it covers the highlights. It speaks about different aspects of the element. It poses ideas or examples that will then trigger people when they're taking the test, and they'll remember the formula and be able to answer the questions effectively and pass the exam and get certified. So I'm going to go over the formula for recovery. I'm simply going to do that by directing you to look in your participant workbook. I may ask us to go around the room and read out each point, have a little bit of a discussion about it. And then there's an activity on page 10 around recovery called Make It Right. And it's just simply an example, a written story about something that happened. I'll ask one of you to read the story, and then we'll answer these questions together. This is the generic example in the curriculum, and they're fine, they're good, they reinforce the ideas. But this is also a natural place to tailor this to the convention center. I won't have the wherewithal to be able to do that for our Train the Trainer's purpose, so I'll use this generic example. But when you're doing your element, if you think about a specific example that you want to use, I encourage you to do it. And in fact, if I could just plant a flag in that and kind of expand a little bit, that's what we're going to do as a group, I hope, as we go through this, is after each element, let's have a minute of discussion. There will be kind of a setup time between each of us as we go. And during that setup time, as the next person's getting ready, I'm going to lead us into a discussion about, all right, we just talked about recovery. We saw the examples. Let's capture some good ideas while they're fresh here about how you could customize a closing activity for each element that's specific to the convention center as a whole, or maybe even your department or your crew or your team, depending on the scope of your training. Are you going to be providing training for multiple departments or just for your own? I don't know, but that's two different ways to kind of approach this. So we'll be having that conversation when we meet together live in about 10 days. So that's really all I have to say for now, but I'm available to you. My email and phone number are in the email letter we are sending you along with this PowerPoint file. And if you have any questions or want to talk about your element and how to present it in advance, I'm open. I'm available to do that for you. Not required, but I just want you to know that you can rely on me to be a resource if I can be helpful. Otherwise, I'll see you in 10 days, and I look forward to working with you. Thanks. Bye.